Hi, this is Mark McCraw. I'm on Defining Moments podcast with Mr. Wong. We have been talking today about my books as a children's book author. We talked about bullying, which is really important. We talked about some reasons why I write, and that it's not only therapeutic, but I enjoy being a writer and being able to share some of the theme-related books that I have. And I really enjoyed being on this podcast today, being able to share those stories about literacy and then leaving a lasting legacy for the children and making a difference in the lives of children. That was very important to me. So it was an awesome experience.
Thank you for tuning into Defining Moments Podcast. Welcome back to the Undefeated Show, Defining Moments Podcast. We're located here at the Triple B of OKC in Kyle Golding's beautiful podcast studio. This episode is brought to you by our great sponsors, M&D Drilling out of Waller, Texas. Today's very special guest is an author of children's book, and he's also a retired disabled veteran of the United States Air Force. Mr. McCraw, welcome to the podcast, sir.
It's nice to see you.
Yeah,
Thank you
absolutely.
for letting me come.
Thank you for your service to our great country.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Before we get going, here are a few gifts that
thank you. I
my wife
appreciate
and I
that.
and our sponsors have for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So you served our great country.
Yes.
What does it mean to be an American?
It means a lot of sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of commitment, discipline, dedication, those things that they teach you in the military that help you throughout life and through civilian jobs as well.
Mm-hmm. What are a few things that they've taught you in the military? What you've learned?
I've learned, one thing is always keep my hair, for the most part, I keep my hair about the same, so that's one of the things I've picked up. But no, it really is just being logistics, really, being able to coordinate things.
Mm-hmm.
It's helped me a lot, especially writing books. It's helped me to kind of break those things down, a task that I need to do and things like that, and be like a long-range planner.
Yeah. Before we get into these books, though, what led you to the military?
Actually, I was very fascinated with, my grandfather was in several wars, and I was fascinated with him because he was in multiple branches of service. I was fascinated with my other grandfather, my foster grandfather. He was in World War II, and I was just really wanted to serve my country, and that was the main thing that I wanted to do. And I had a choice, actually, to sit down as a junior and figure out what do I want to do. So I had this giant sack of all these different brochures from around the United States and all different kinds of tech schools. And I looked at the Navy and the Air Force and the Army and all that. And I said, well, the Navy sounded pretty interesting, but I'm not really that great when it comes to swimming. I'm okay, but I think I'll just go to the Air Force.
Yeah.
And so being in ROTC, junior ROTC, really helped me to, get into the military and get promoted a lot faster because I had spent 4 years in junior ROTC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how long were you in the Air Force?
I was in the Air Force a little over 8 years, and then after that, I was on what they call transition assistance. I got out on an early out program.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I went on to go in the Air Force Reserves, and I spent 4 years in the Air Force Reserves and had the opportunity to go on active duty, do my regular drill time and go to places like Belize and Germany and places that I had never been before. So I was excited about that.
Yeah. What are some of the comparisons to the countries you've been to compared to the United States as far as maybe the climate of how industries are built or civilian life?
Well, I mean, as far as like going to other countries, I know it's a lot harder to get products and food and things of that nature. But I always love to go to another country because I get to experience the culture.
Mm.
So when I go to a place like I was stationed in Korea, I don't only just stay on the base. I go and I go around the country, go on tours, get to meet people. And I really believe that when you go to another country, one, you have to respect the laws. That's important. I see a lot of people who aren't respecting the laws when they go to other countries, and that's a big problem. But I feel like that we need to teach our children that there's cultural experiences in the United States and outside of the United States that we need to appreciate. We need to learn those customs, and even trying to learn the language. If you've never tried that language, you get a lot more respect. I was on a tour in 2021 to Korea, and the Korean government and some of the military organizations there had sponsored it. And the tour guide was really surprised that I could actually talk to her back in Korean.
Wow.
And she was like, "You know Korean?" I'm like, "Yes, my teacher is Mr. An, and I went to, intro to Korean class and all that." So, so I really believe that you have to be, involved in the community that you're at. And I used to be involved with like festivals and all kinds of things locally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So be a part of the community.
How's the food?
Love it.
Yeah.
I love kimchi. I love, I love Korean barbecue and bulgogi and all that. I love any really Asian food. If it's really, really hot, I have a hard time. Not so much now. Well, now it's more so, but before it was,
Okay.
it was okay, but now I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
As I'm getting older. So,
right.
Those hot things just bother me.
Right. What's your favorite base or country that you were based at?
That is so hard because I've been to over 10 different countries. So there's just so many. But I guess it's because I have been to Korea so many times. I've been to the Philippines. I was actually stationed in Okinawa. And I liked all of them. But I like Korea because of the fact that they have progressed so fast. Every time I go over there, I was there in 86 and 87. I went TDY, temporary duty, in the 2000s when I was at Kadena. And then later on, I went to the 65th anniversary of the Korean War in 2017.
Wow.
And then in 2021, I was invited on another tour with the first group of 10 Korea defense veterans that served after the Korean War. So I had the opportunity to go and go on a 5-day tour and go back to bases that I hadn't seen in over 40 years. And it was just amazing the amount of construction that's going on, and the expansion was just like I was floored. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It's the progression has just happened so fast.
Yeah.
And it's in many countries, but not just Korea. But it's hard to really pinpoint. But I do like the people there too. So.
Yeah. Were you married during your service or?
We actually got married in '88.
Okay.
Actually, my wife went off into the Navy.
Okay.
I was going to college after high school, and over the years, she had gone to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and we had been communicating by Mars radio and things like that. And there was actually a letter in Austin, Texas, that had been sitting on the refrigerator for 3 years because she had been gone, and I had been trying to communicate through her parents. So we got back together in Bergstrom Air Force Base, which is now closed for the military, but it's still a civilian airport. And we actually got married there.
Wow.
And I did not know I was going to go there. She actually had orders to Atsugi, Japan, and I had orders to Masawa as a security police. And I changed career fields, and I didn't know what base I was going to. And it just so happened on Mother's Day in '87, we actually came together in Austin, Texas, and we got married a year later. Now, the funny thing about it is I've known her ever since we were in junior high. So not only have we been married, we also were friends around the block from each other and went to high school and junior high. So
wow, that's really interesting, actually.
So it's just kind of interesting how it happened and some of the things and experiences and so
yeah,
I enjoyed it.
So you've been to 10 different countries, plenty of you're well cultured. What are some defining moments that you've been through in your life that you'd like to share with our audience?
Defining moments. I guess the biggest thing is I actually got to go on a 19-day trip with 43 high school students from Spain, France, and Italy. Okay. And that was a long trip, 19 long days. And if you know anything about high school students, you got to keep them away from each other. So, they enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it, and I got to be a tour leader. So I got to be a tour leader twice, actually. One with People to People International, which they had a tour group there at one time. And then EF Tours, I took a football player from Oklahoma who had never been out of Oklahoma and actually took him to Italy.
Wow.
And so I've had a couple of EF tours that I've gone on, with different students.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a great experience. It really was. It was eye-opening.
Well, what does leadership mean to you? How would you define leadership?
Leadership really is not only just being a boss, but also to be a part of a worker too. I mean, I think recently I saw a CEO of an airline or something was actually stepping in and serving on an airplane. And I thought, how cool is that he's showing them, the people that are working for him, that he's not afraid to get down there and work with the other people. And that's the biggest thing about leadership is you can't always sit at the top and just send a lot of things down without knowing what the effects of that's going to be. Whether it's the rule changes or or things like that. So it's very important that you're a part of the team as well.
Yeah. What are about 3 words you would use to describe a great leader?
A great leader, one is motivated. Not only being motivated, but friendly to people around them. And I think also really dedicated to their job. But I think the hardest thing is being able to define the difference between work and home. So you have to be able to balance your time. And I know sometimes I've seen people who are working that everything is about work. There's no defining part where they can actually cut it off and say, okay, work is done. Especially like if you're a teacher, for instance, you're always constantly thinking. A lot of people think that teachers stop at 3:00, that kind of thing, and really they're thinking all night long and they can't turn their brain off. And I think that's the same way with any CEO position or any leadership position, that you have to be able to do that. So.
Yeah. How do you create your own work-life, let's say, balance when you are serving or when you're just in your professional life?
In my professional life, well, it's kind of hard to do because when I worked at the Department of Corrections, they didn't really give you a choice at 11 o'clock at night. So usually they would say, you're staying. Your friends were going out the gate and, you're staying. So it really was hard to balance your life when you never knew if you were going to be home or you're going to have different days. So it's hard on your family when you have a job like that where there's no, volunteer kind of motive. So, and I think you have to be able to, spend that time because, you can look back and say, well, why did I work so long? You're trying to provide for the family, but at the same time, you feel guilty because you're not being able to spend as much time. And I think that's a problem that we have is because a lot of times the pay scales are not high enough. So you see multiple people working multiple jobs and they're losing time with their family. And that's hard. That's a hard life to live. Even when I was working in a nonprofit, I was constantly gone all the time. And, sometimes it was a 7-day work week, and sometimes it was an unwritten rule that you had to be doing things on Sunday. So it's not easy. It's not easy in the workplace with jobs that have those commitments. Yeah.
You're an author, so you might appreciate this question. If you were to write a book about yourself, what would the title of that book be?
I would say a jack of all trades. I just had different careers over the. It's just kind of funny how it's worked out. How I've got into education and how I was been going to school since 1983, and I stopped in 2017 and then started again in 2019, and so there was a lot of chaos with that, going to school and working and all of that normal kind of things that people deal with today. But I think that really jack of all trades would be, and then of course my family always thinks I'm a resource person, that I always find stuff on the internet for people or found money for people like family members and stuff like that. So they get all excited about that. So they call me resource man, and they were going to get me like a cape and put an R on there. It says resource man.
You said education. So were you a teacher as well?
Yes, I started out first as a teacher's aide, one-on-one, to some special needs students who needed attention one-on-one, and then later on I became a teacher aide in a classroom with a resource teacher, and I had worked for Moore Public Schools for a while, and then later on I went on to become a teacher, got my teaching degree, and had the option to go to the Apache Reservation in Arizona, or go to the Navajo Reservation and teach, because I had already gone to the University of Phoenix. I was getting my master's, and I already had my background checks. So they loved that because I was already ready to go. And so I chose the Navajo Reservation and worked in an elementary school there in Arizona. And then, then later on, I moved back to Oklahoma after 5 years and started teaching 5th and 6th grade in Oklahoma City Public Schools. So.
Wow, pretty fulfilling. You enjoyed it?
Yes, I enjoyed it. I enjoy the students. There's just so many different things and amazing things. When you ask the kids, like, is there a question, and they'll come up, well, my daddy, he went out and fixed a tire, and it's like, or whatever,
Yeah.
So it's not really a question, it's just like they just want to tell you what happened, or in their life. So it's just so precious to see things like that,
Yeah.
And I actually keep in my office a notebook that I have probably over 40 or more years of just constant letters and things that kids have given me.
Yeah.
And I keep that, and I look back at it every once in a while, and I wonder, how are these kids doing today? What are they doing as an adult today?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of neat to look back and see those Valentine cards and those different things that they give you for teacher recognition and things. And it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
I think that's the most rewarding of all, is working with the children.
Yeah. What has teaching taught you?
What has teaching taught me? That there's always something more to learn. As you know, with technology, teachers are having to know more and more technology. And I came from a generation where, I didn't really start doing a lot of computers until I was in the 8th grade. So, so that's always a learning curve when you haven't been around a lot of things. And so you have to really go back and try to learn some of those things and kind of, catch up with the rest of society.
Yeah.
And there's always a learning thing. That's one thing I've always learned is it's always trial and error, learning something new. So
yeah. What are a couple questions that people never ask you, but you wish they would ask?
I guess the question I think asking, I would say, is, really about how writing is important to, I guess that's the main thing is, a lot of people come up to me and they say, I can't write. I said, but you can. You can. You have a story to tell. And I guess most people think that they can't publish because they don't think their story is good enough. So I really wish that they would, say, well, kind of do the same thing I kind of do and say, well, no, you can do it. You just you gotta kind of have a leap of faith and go out there and do it. So I really wish that like, and I've had a few people that come up like, how do you become and stuff like that. But I really wish that more people would be able to do that, would, realize that you can do it. It's becoming more easier now today than it was when I first started.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, it was harder. You had to go through traditional publishing, and now you get self-publishing now,
Right. So let's get into the author. Like, how did you start? Why did you start? Explain that and kind of take us through that story.
Okay, in 2005 to 2011, I was working in more public schools, of course, as a teacher's aide, and I started seeing a lot of authors coming in to our school, and I started like pulling them aside and asking them questions, and I was just fascinated with them, But over the years, as time went on, I didn't think much about it. I had these stories in my head, but I just never put it out. And it wasn't until 2020, 2021 that I said, you know what, I think I might be able to do this. So I put out my first book, Did You Come Home for Lunch, which was a military dependent book.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was just like all of a sudden, all these ideas started coming to me, and I started publishing another book and another book and another book. And when I went to my first publisher, Archway Publishing, they were really surprised that I had written so many books after the first one that I published with them. And they were amazed that I had written so many books when some of the authors that they haven't written that many in so many, in a long time. So they were really impressed. So it's not really about the quantity or number of books. It's really about trying to portray the stories. I don't do a lot of books that have to do with animals. I typically try to do theme-related books that deal with problems that our children are having and how they can deal with them, as well as not only leaving a legacy for my children and grandchildren. So each book represents a child or grandchild that it's dedicated to. Most of the books in there are done that way. So I just work my way down the list and find those stories that they may have had problems with, things that were going on in their life, or things that they can figure out a solution to.
Yeah.
And I really want to make a difference in the lives of children. That's what I want to do. And I never got into it for the money. There's a lot of people say, well, success is all about this. They ask me, well, how are your book sales? And I tell them, okay, but how do you define success?
Right.
I said, do you define success only in money? Success to me is when a child picks up my book and reads it. Success to me is when my books are global. They're around the world. when somebody in Germany buys my book or somebody in Australia buys my book, I never thought that would have happened in 2021.
Yeah.
I never thought it would get that far. I never thought it would get to the library. I never thought I'd be on Audible or any of the major retailers.
Yeah.
And and even in the library now, I've had 2 that were picked up by a Metro Library.
Wow.
And so I'm excited that it's going this far.
Yeah.
And so when I go to an event, like I'm going to one this week, even if I don't sell a book the whole time, I always market. So I'm always marketing during that time, and I'm always thinking about the next book
Yeah.
or the next manuscript. And so what I do is I pre-write, and I just pre-write them, and I just put them up on next to my door. And then later on, I come back to them, and I just pick them up and, revise it and do those kind of things. And then later on, I format it, hire the illustrators, the editors, and things like that. And I typically have children read my books.
Okay.
So I find children that are the right age, I work through their parents, and I hire them to narrate my books.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. What are a few of your favorite books? Because you've written quite a few. So what are maybe 3 or 4 of your favorite ones? And how did you come up with the character and the storyline?
Well, Babbling Betty is one because, as you can tell, I'm a babbler. But no, I've always been accused of that when I was a kid. So Babbling Betty was probably the funnest, I think, because I actually got to use the letter B in the whole book, and I used stories about, different things about the little girl, who knows a lot about reading, but she gets in trouble when she goes to class because she's babbling about it all day. And so her classmates don't like it when she's doing that. And so, and then she goes on to have some guest speakers that, got abducted by aliens, and she didn't believe their story, and things like that. So there was a lot of different stories in there about the little girl goes on a trip and she ends up, her dad gives her bubble gum, a water bubble gum, because she babbles all the way from Boston, Massachusetts, and to Birmingham, Alabama. And so her dad gives her a water bubble gum, and tries to keep her from talking the whole trip. But it's just kind of fun. And a lot of it relates to some of the true stories that happened to me when I was younger. So I kind of like throw those in there. And that was an alliteration. And I'm actually working on the letter A right now. So.
Okay.
But I just do a little bit of different things. I do that one. Did You Come Home for Lunch? That was just a fun story. That one went on to San Diego Festival of Books last year. And this year it was in Times Square. It was with 200 other authors from age 9 to 90. And they were actually, those books were turned over to Simon & Schuster. So I was excited about that. So
wow.
We don't know how that's going to play out. But I was excited that, that book is going there. And I'm looking at next year going to a national event, hopefully. There's some ones in Miami and Austin and some other places that I want to look at to try to get my book with exposure. And some of those events have 30,000 people.
Wow.
So, I really want to get that exposure out there. But I enjoyed doing that. And then the Toilet Paper Caper of 2020, which, that's just it was a fun rhyming book. And it was just about greed and hoarding. It was teaching kids that, there's people out there who are selling toilet paper. And, making a lot of money on it and hoarding. And it really teaches the kids about people being greedy and hoarding stuff. And that's the main part of that theme.
Yeah.
So building those themes in there, having that legacy as well as literacy, those two are important to me.
That makes a lot of sense. What's one book that you wrote about that's actually about you and your life?
Well, actually, believe it or not, Did You Come Home for Lunch actually has pictures of me with the military uniform.
Okay.
So when I'm reading the book and they see the picture, they kind of they look at that picture and they said, looks familiar,
Yeah.
And then I said, well, it's about somebody in this room. And so I'll look around, when I'm doing the book talk or whatever, and they'll say, that's you. So they'll point at me and they say, that's you in the uniform,
Yeah.
So they're really excited about that. So they get to identify me and the character in the story and they get to learn about it. And you'd be surprised how many children raise their hands and say, I have a mom, a dad, aunt in the military, uncle, whoever. And then I always tell the children that aren't in the military that mommies and daddies still go away. They might be on business. They might be in the oil wells. But it's always good when they come home because you can, and that's what it's about, is that you come home and they can hug you, and it's that reunion.
Yeah.
So,
what's your favorite part about writing books?
Really, it's therapeutic. It really is. And it's the funniest thing because I never thought that I would have the next 7 titles in my head already. And I've already got the ideas already. Some of them have been written down.
Yeah.
And I'm working on 3 right now that are at my desk that are hopefully will be out by the fall, and 2 Kindles. So I'm excited about that. And Audibles. The more words you have, the more expensive it gets on narrating. So I have to wait on those. But I have done most of them in Audible, and they're not long. But several of the kids, it's good for them because they don't have to sit that long, and it's not a long book, and it works well for them. And I usually bring props. I usually, like for Did You Come Home for Lunch? I have an Air Force guy that salutes, and I bring in a little C-130 plane. And next couple weeks from now, I'm going to be reading to some 3, 4s, and 5s. So I'm excited about that. So the youngest I've read to is 2 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So most of my books go on all the way up to 5th grade and 6th grade. So the one that just came out this week is called Brains Over Brawn, and that's about bullying. It's a 5th grade bullying book. And so that's kind of new. And one of the kids today asked me at a school, how come you don't have the book cover? I was like, well, I got to buy the book. I have to get the book in print. And then once it comes to me, then I can, have it. But I'm like, it's fresh. So I started reading part of the manuscript so they could hear about it. And I said, it's already out. It's just, it's making its way around. So it's on Amazon so.
Yeah. So you wrote a book about bullying. Your thoughts have got to be up there about bullying in society itself right now. Do you what are your thoughts on bullying?
Bullying is an epidemic. When you have kindergartners that are bullying and you hear stories of that and it goes on up, it's becoming an epidemic. Today we had talked about different kinds of bullying and how when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of internet stuff going on with cyberbullying. So we talked about that. We talked about physical bullying and social bullying and all kinds of different types of bullying. And it is a problem. I mean, you see that even in the adults. So in the front of the book, I actually dedicate it to those adults and children who have ever been bullied. And it actually talks in the story about a young boy named Marcus who actually not only was he a bully, but he learned that it wasn't okay to be a bully, but at the same time, he was being bullied. And so some people would say, well, you should leave that out of the story. And I'm like, no, why leave it out of the story? Because it's real. It's real, And so there's also resources in there from stopbullying.gov that explain to them how to look for bullies. And so we went over those kind of things. And we also talked about respect and how important it is. And so I think that they learned something from that because it is an issue that goes on every single day. You see it on the road rage. You see it on the internet. You see it in schools. And it's important for the schools to have a bully prevention program. And not only to have it, but the children to be able to apply those concepts.
Yeah. So on the topic of bullying, what are the couple, I guess, hints of being able to identify a bully?
Well, one, a bully is looking for somebody who's weak. They're looking for somebody who may not have the right size. They might be tall, short, glasses. It could be a myriad of different things that they don't like. It could be their accent. In the case of Brains Over Brawn, it had to do with the kid's accent. He was Southern going to a Northern school. And so the accent was different. So because he talked funny, the other children started bullying him. And it wasn't just one bully, it was multiple bullies.
Right.
So Brains Over Brawn actually talks about how does that bully overturn something that's very complicated because you're dealing with more than one bully. And it can be a bully. It can be a set of kids. It could be, kids that are leaving people out on the playground, those kind of things. So I explained to them that there's so many different ways, teasing and hitting and spitting and things like that. There's so many things that bully entail today. It's rampant, and we got to do something about it. We really do, because there's too many things that are happening in society because of that.
Yeah. You said we got to do something about it. So my question to you is, what are a couple of solutions from you on how to stop bullying?
One is to report it. And the thing of this story that about Marcus and the Brains Over Brawn is he didn't report it until he was an adult. And so I told the children today, I'm like, don't wait to report it when report it right away. Right. And the problem with children not being able to report it is because they're afraid of retaliation. They're afraid if they go to the principal, they go to their teacher, they're going to get retaliated against.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes they don't report it. So they go home and they have this feeling in their stomach of being sick all the time. So their parents really don't know what's going on, until they start to click and they start seeing, well, why is he getting sick all the time?
Yeah.
Then they start to figure out something's not right. I probably need to call the school, talk to the teacher, talk to the principal, see what's going on. Is my child being bullied?
Yeah.
And so, yes, that's a big thing. It really is. And it happens in a lot of classes.
Yeah.
And
that bullying topic is it can get pretty sensitive and actually can get really heated.
Yes.
With just human beings talking about it because everyone's got a different perspective. So
they do.
I definitely appreciate yours.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's really what the book really is talking about is you can find a way to outsmart a bully by using your brains. You just have to be able to use your brains and figure out a way to overcome that. And you can overcome a bully because bullies don't like when somebody's nice to them.
Yeah.
They don't like when you stand up and say, I'm not going to put up with it. They want to be the aggressor.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be the person that's, that's calm, but at the same time, you're going to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
So.
What are a couple other themes you're looking at to writing these books? You got bullying, anything about social media use, family?
Yeah, the next couple books is really there's one coming out about accidents and how the kid's accident prone. So there's one coming out on that one, and there's some other ones coming out. There's a funny one coming out that's going to come out in the fall, later in the fall, and it's a 5th grade boy is actually going to be an author.
Okay.
So one of my grandsons is going to be the author.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to be the co-author, and then we'll have an illustrator that will illustrate the book. And so by the end of my grandson's 5th grade year, he'll actually be an author.
Man.
So it's just helping the next generation realize they can do this.
Yeah.
So I've been collaborating with him a lot on it, and I hope to have that story out within a couple of months. So.
Wow. So how old is a 5th grader?
Usually around 9 or 10.
9 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're very creative.
Mm-hmm.
Probably can tell a good story and
help. They're and sometimes you'll have some that are like 10, 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually around that age range. But I think it's really good for them to be able to do that. And I try to tell the children that a lot of authors really go back to those stories that they wrote in elementary, and they actually create books today. And so I said, and some of the kids will come up at different events, and I'll say, they go, well, I'm really good at drawing. And then the brother, or the sister and brother, and the brother will say, well, I'm really good at writing journals. Well, why don't you two get together, and make a book? And I can show you how to do that.
Yeah.
So I do have people that come up and ask me that, and I'm like, you can do this. I'll show you how to do it. It's not a secret. It's not classified.
Yeah.
And I can help you create this book and show you how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. What advice would you give your younger self, let's say 18-year-old self?
What would I give advice to an 18-year-old?
For yourself, what would you tell yourself?
Learn about things about life before you get out of high school. Learn about financial literacy. Learn about the world around you. I think there needs to be more things about citizenship. I know a lot of states have started that you have to pass a citizenship test to pass in high schools. I think there's 14 states that require it. I don't know what it's up to now, but you'd be surprised on people who don't even know who George Washington was. And you see that. You've seen that in different things like on different shows and stuff.
Sure.
They go out and interview people, and they're like, have no clue who the current president is, or things like that. So I really think the kids need to know basic things about what it's like to be an American. And I think we're losing that because we're not sharing that, and children are coming out and have no clue on these things, and there's things that they should know.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say financial literacy and citizenship would be two important ones. Of course, there is home economics.
Sure.
But they need to have a block on financial literacy because a lot of kids don't know when they leave school, or their parents never taught them. Maybe,
Right.
So they need to know about credit cards and all those kind of different things.
That's really interesting. The financial literacy, some economics, and citizenship.
Yes, I highly agree with that.
Wow.
And of course, bully prevention, which we
Sure.
talked about. Yeah, that needs to be in there as well. and letting the high schoolers know that, hey, bullying can still happen
Yeah.
when you become an adult. That's where road rage and things like that come about.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah. That citizenship one is actually quite intriguing because you brought up George Washington. If you don't know who that is, I don't think he should pass, and your whole entire grade should probably fail.
Yeah, I think the American government is important that you teach them, basic things about citizenship, and the flag and what it means. And as a veteran, it's the flag is very important to me. And when I think about all the generations of people before me who sacrificed for that flag, it's disheartening when I see somebody disrespecting it, even though, they'll say that's freedom of speech, and I understand that. It's, to me, as a veteran, it means a lot. It means a lot to have that flag and have that respect about being an American and what people fought for, and sacrificed for.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because you're exactly right. The flag means a great deal to myself and my family, and your point is you do have freedom of speech to quote unquote disrespect the flag if you want. However, there's unintended consequences that come along with that, and there's a lot of respect that doesn't really have to be talked about, that you should respect the flag.
I mean, when I went to Korea and they start, they do the national anthem and they do things like that, their anthem and all that, it's just out of respect that you stand up and things like that. And just, you have to have that sense of respect when you go to another country. And when they're doing something like that, and it's with anything, really. I mean, and to a veteran, the flag means a lot. They do a lot of flag ceremonies. They do a lot of things with funerals and things of that nature. Yeah. So it means a lot to them, and I think a child needs to know, and a high schooler also needs to know as well what it's like to be an American and the respect of how to take care of the flag and things like that.
Yeah, especially folding the American flag.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think many people know how to fold the flag.
So. I actually do. I was taught that in elementary school, believe it or not.
And then you see a lot of flags in schools, and I'm glad that we see that, because that's important,
Sure. Yeah, so when you go back into your life and think about not just your defining moments, but what were some of those obstacles that you had to overcome to get to where you are today?
I think the hardest thing for me, because that's how that bullying book came about, was when my parents separated. That was very difficult for me. I had a hard time dealing with that. I think I'm not making excuses for it, but I think that was the hardest part of my life. And then also with my mom being sick, that was definite hurts, because my mom had cancer and stuff like that, and it was a very bad time of life, because I really wanted to get through that, and it was hard, and it's hard when anybody goes through that kind of disease.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine that, going through that, what you just explained or talked about. That's got to be super challenging. Are you eventually going to transition from writing children's books to more adult themed type of books?
Not so much. However, I am using a lot of my parents and grandparents. I actually talk about my grandparent in Brains Over Brawn, who was a World War II vet, and I actually talk about him and some of the funny stories that are in there about him that talks about, him coming to visit us and all that kind of stuff. So that's in there. But I intertwine some of that in there. My dad and uncle are twins.
Okay.
And so there's some stories coming out, which I think they're excited that they're coming out. My dad had passed away in 2012, and my mom was in 2021. And, so it was pretty tough on that part of it. But I'm actually weaving those stories into, as I go along, to my parents and grandparents, and weaving those within those stories. So I got some younger grades coming out, and I've got some fifth grade coming out, and I've got a fourth grade book coming out. So basically first, fourth, and fifth are coming out. And probably I do have an idea for a middle school one that I like to do. And then somebody asked me to do another military book, which I'm going to probably do that next year.
Okay.
And so that'll be my third military book. And so I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a very sensitive book, but it's also going to be a very important book.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
So, but I have all these titles in my head, and then one day I had some epiphany. I was at somebody's house, or a daughter-in-law's house, I believe, and I just, all of a sudden, this poem came to my head, and I had to start typing it. And I'm not really a poet, you know. It just came in my head, and I just started writing. And I'm like, you know what? That might make a good book. You know, that might be a good kid's book. You know, so that's how that happens. I have to write it or text myself right away, or I'll forget it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, whatever you do, don't stop writing books, because when you talk about that, your face lights up, and I feel a good vibe, and I feel like you're really excited about it.
I am. It's funny because I'll go to the VA and stuff, and my blood pressure actually gets better when I start talking about my books. You know, it's for me, it's not, you know, and I have author friends that, they give me some mentor advice and stuff, and I do it a different way than most people.
Sure.
Some people do it where they just do only retail stores, or some of them do retail and then they do individual book signings, and then some people just only do book signings. So I kind of hit the gamut of all different ones, because I want to hit those different mediums out there.
Yeah.
You know, and so I've got ebooks out there that are on like 10 or 15 different ebook sites. And I have books that are over 38 different websites out there, and several stores that are out there online. And, pretty much my trailers and everything can be found on www.markmccraw.com. So it's pretty easy. And I try to update that as much as I can. And I put a lot of those pictures and things that I do and video trailers and things of that nature on there, so I can, get people interested in those kind of books and have those conversations with their kids.
Yeah, I love it. When was the last time you challenged yourself with doing something you've never done before?
The last time to challenge, probably learning new things like doodling and stuff, where you actually get to make these kind of like cartoon characters and stuff. So that was challenging for me because I'd never done that. So what it is, and I've made videos where you record over a character. So it's kind of cool to do that. I've never done it before.
Yeah.
So it's actually, we've got a little man that's on a video, and he's out in the woods, and he's like, "Have you seen that there's a Oklahoma author?" And he's just raising his hands, and so I've got all kinds of things, and I'm raising his hands, and I'm recording over it, and it's cool. I like to see things like that. It's so much fun. I guess I'm a kid at heart. I get in trouble when I go to Walmart or places like that at the toy section, because I always like gadgets and gadgets.
Yeah.
And it's just because I was a second grade teacher, and I literally, as old as I am, I still try to get down on the floor with kids and read.
Yeah.
So I may not be able to get back up,
but
at least I get down to their level and try to, meet them on their own turf,
Yeah.
But for me, that's everything.
Yeah.
That's everything. And I will continue to write as long as I can. And again, like I said, it's not about quantity. It's about sharing something that's a piece of my heart.
What was your favorite gadget when you were younger?
My favorite gadget, surprisingly enough, was boxes. As I enjoyed going outside, and I know today that's probably, kids still do it today.
Yeah.
They go out and make box forts. Or getting, blankets and hanging them over the side of a table.
Yeah.
For me, that was so much fun, going out and playing in the water faucet, and that was our water fountain, it's turn on the water faucet, and that's how we drank outside,
Yeah.
So I miss those days, because I think today there's so much technology, which is good, but I think some of the children are missing those opportunities to get outside and ride their bike and get out and read more and do things other than just technology. And there's nothing wrong with doing technology. But you have to have boundaries. You have to teach your children boundaries, and you have to be able to spend time with them, because they grow up too fast. And once they're growing up too fast, it's hard.
Yeah.
You may not see them as much and things like that, because they have lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should change the name of this particular episode of Defining Moments podcast to Life Advice by Mr. McCraw.
I'm not an expert by any means. I've just learned by the seat of my pants, over the years. But, writing is trial and error. It really is.
Sure.
And I think every day I learn something. I've talked to probably over, 50 or 60 different authors in several years. And I've learned a lot. They've taught me a lot, and I've taught them a lot. So
yeah. Wow, that's awesome. What are you most proud of?
Well, the fact that I can go on Google and find my books in Japan and Italy and Poland and Switzerland and
Yeah.
and one book was actually there's a lady who I did a contest on Facebook, and she was from Scotland, I believe, and she won a book, and she read it. She was living on a military base, and I sent it to her. Took a while to get to her, but she put a review on UK Amazon, so I was excited about that. And then I had one, the toilet paper caper was bought in Germany.
Okay.
The problem is, which is one of the ones, the last one that I just did before Brains Over Brawn, and that one was actually bought in Australia 3 weeks after it was put on the market.
Wow.
So for me, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see that my book is being distributed out all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes me happy. It makes me feel good that. And then one day I saw a young boy who I think I've seen before, probably a homeschooler, I'm not sure, who was reading the toilet paper caper on YouTube.
Huh.
And I was like, wow. I told my wife, I was like, I can't believe that. That's awesome.
That is
so
awesome.
That just made me feel really good that a child was reading my book on YouTube.
That's great.
And I enjoy that. That's what makes me happy the most.
Yeah.
Is when I can share. And so far this year, I've read to over, not including the last two, probably over to 660 or so kids so far.
Man, that's a lot.
Yeah, so I'm excited about it. I really am, and I enjoy doing it. And I've got another one scheduled in a couple of weeks for 3, 4s, and 5s.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
Okay. I'm going to switch gears for just a minute.
Absolutely.
Usually we filled out questions to our audience, especially on Twitter, because we're very active on Twitter.
Sure.
And so I've got just 3 questions that I know that's the most common ones. So does pineapple belong on pizza? What are your thoughts?
Does pineapple belong in pizza? I like pineapple, so for me, yes.
Okay.
I like pineapple because it's good, you know. Some
Yeah.
people don't like pineapple, but because it's too acidic. But I like pineapple.
Okay. Are you a big college football fan?
I do go to some college football games,
Yeah.
but I like other sports too. So.
Yeah. What's your favorite sport?
Actually, I'll get in trouble if I say this. It's actually volleyball. Girls volleyball.
Okay.
Yeah. I know my wife would say, "Oh, girls volleyball, yeah." And actually, I've been a referee actually for high school, volleyball girls and stuff. And I really like girls basketball because they're really good at it, as the guys are too. But I really enjoy watching. And I'm not good at basketball, so. But volleyball, I've always loved volleyball. I love to play volleyball.
Yeah.
And I do like to watch football, but I just prefer volleyball.
Okay. Very good. Last question for you. How do you want to be remembered?
How do I want to be remembered? Well, that I left a lasting legacy for my children, and that, literacy, obviously that someone is reading my book.
Yeah.
To me, that is so important, and I enjoy it when I sit down, even with my grandkids, and we're reading the book together, because it's helping them, and we're sharing that time together.
Right.
And that's what's important. You can't get that back.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And it's just so precious to sit with a kindergartner who, will say, come over at 47, and it's those funny things that in life that crack you up, or when somebody asks you a question, or you say, do you have a question? And they go, well, my mommy went to the supermarket, and it's like, it's just so precious, how can you not, just laugh at that, beneath the little kindergartners out there saying all kinds of things. I have red hair, So,
yeah, that's true.
It's rewarding.
That's great. What are your social media handles? Like on social media?
Yes.
Okay, would you mind letting our...
Sure, I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook shop. I'm on Twitter. I'm also on, Twitter. That's pretty much Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Those are the main ones that I stay on.
What's your Twitter handle and Instagram handle?
You asked me a hard question because I don't have that with me. But usually it's quickdraw_M is on most of it. And then the Facebook is like Mark.McCraw3, I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't bring that with me. I'm sorry. But
that's all right. I found you on Facebook. So
yeah, I'm on Facebook. I do have a Facebook shop. I also have my website shop. That they can order books on. I also have books on eBay. I have several books on eBay. So I have 3 shops right now that are out there.
Okay.
So, and I have actually had visitors on my website, which I'm excited in different places around the world. So I'm excited about that people are actually going on and looking, and they can see the different things that are on there, because I have a blog on there too. So
okay, that's awesome. Well, don't give up writing ever. And thank you for your service to our great country.
I appreciate
sir.
it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. For more Defining Moments podcast content, visit our webpage, www.undefeated.show. Follow us at Def Moments Pod on Twitter and at Defining Moments Podcast on Instagram.